The story begins in a peaceful city, but from time to time, these people will be interrupted by some giant demonic ogres who will intrude their town, hunting down everyone, and we see the civilians trying to hide and survive from the ongoing attack. While this is happening, a mysterious-looking man is seen riding a giant dragon, and he explains to us that ever since he was a young man, he's always wanted to become the strongest person he can possibly be, so that he can protect those around him and also so no one can ever take anything away from him. This guy happens to be the savior of the city and the only person capable of eliminating these demonic monsters. With just a single move, he burns the ogres to the ground and conquers their demon race within the matter of seconds. Right after that, he tells us that he has finally become the strongest exorcist known to man. But due to him having this power, it was the very reason that these monsters came to the city to try and challenge him, and thus making the king order for his arrest, and they ultimately ruined his reputation and even took away his students and turned everyone else against him. He was once the strongest exorcist who ever lived, saving everyone against demons, but he has now been demonized himself by the very people he once saved. He makes a promise that in his next life he will not make the same mistakes, and then the man casts a spell to purposely reincarnate himself in another world and escapes his previous life to avoid being hated by everyone. After being reincarnated, the strongest exorcist has now been reborn into a 5-year-old boy named Seika, and is the third son of a very noble family, and they seem to be a family of mages, who specialize in all types of magic. The other sons have already been born with incredible magical abilities, and his father is trying to perform a ritual to see if his youngest son has any magical abilities like the others. But the ritual fails, and the father informs the rest of the family that Seika has no power inside him, so his siblings laugh at him for being an embarrassment to the rest of the family. After being looked down upon by his siblings, Seika goes outside to the garden, where he picks up some leaves and secretly performs a magical spell all by himself, and Seika can remember his past life memories as being the strongest exorcist and manages to release what's called a shikigami spell, and the leaves turn into some rats and other leaves turn into ravens, and they will now protect him while he lives in this other world. This is when his older brother, named Glai, tries to bully him about being a non-magical user, and then these birds come back just in time to save him and they stop Glai from hurting Seika. After that, his other brother named Luft heads over and tries to help out Glai from Seika's ravens, as he didn't know he had control of the crows and didn't see what happened. It has been a few years since that moment happened, and it is now Seika's 7th birthday. But unlike his other brothers, Seika does not get to celebrate his birthday, and most people who live inside the mansion just ignore him, so he lives a pretty lonely life. But there are a few people who do like Seika, and one of those people is his maid, named Aoife, who normally has to gather Seika's items and belongings that have been taken by his brother. After, Glai visits Seika's room and starts to tease him about joining the prestigious magical academy, which will better his abilities as he knows that Seika's dream was to study magic and be like everyone else. He calls Seika many names and tries making him jealous about him being the better brother. After, their father arrives and tells Glai that it's time for his training. Before they leave, Seika quickly asks his dad if he can also join in on the training today, because throughout his whole life he's never had the chance to even be around the training ground. His father eventually agrees and they all head down to the field. When the three brothers enter the training field, Luft, his other older brother, is chosen to practice first, and he unleashes a green spirit magical spell. Glai is up next and he performs a fire spell which impresses his father. Lastly, Seika is chosen to see if he can do anything at all, and he takes the wand off Glai. When wielding the wand, he stands in position, and then Seika talks inside his own head, and tells us that he doesn't really want to reveal his true abilities of sorcery to everyone, as he doesn't want to become another powerful person in this life and have everybody hate him once again for being too powerful. But in that exact moment, Seika has had enough of everyone in the family treating him like he's a failure, and said that the strong will always prey on the weak. So he reveals a blue ice and fire spell, shocking his brothers, as Seika must actually have some kind of magic inside him after all. Glai asks his father how Seika was able to produce a blue fire spell, as the blue fire is not normally possible to do in this world, and is rarely seen at all. But his father tells him that some people possess different kind of magic powers, which all stems from that person's true nature and their spirit within themselves. After showing them that he's capable of performing magic, Seika asks his father if he can start learning more about magic too, just like his brothers. But his father disagrees and said that it would be too dangerous for someone born with his heritage to study the magical arts, as Seika's mother was only a common girl, unlike his brothers, as their mother was a famous witch and noble woman of the city. However, his father tells him that instead of learning the prestigious ways of magical arts right now, instead he will be given a tutor in order to help him understand more about magic, as his father thinks he's too weak to enter the academy or study in the hierarchy. So Seika agrees and begins to study by reading the books inside their mansion. We then have a change of scenes, and Seika has grown up a bit, as he is now 11 years old. He has read and studied about everything he can in this new world, and also explains how in his previous life, he managed to store many Ayakashi, otherwise known as Yakai spirits, within him that he defeated in battle, and now they listen to his commands whenever he summons them. Seika remembers these things from when he was the exorcist, so he decides to see if these Yakai spirits will assist him in this new world. He only wants to summon a non-lethal Yakai at first to see if it still works. He then creates a door which opens up to a different realm, and then the Yakai spirit, named Yuki, appears. However, Seika is surprised because in his previous life, Yuki was already a grown-up woman, but in this life, she appears to be an adorable but slightly annoying girl who won't leave him alone. She asks Seika why he summoned her to this world, but Seika tells her it was only a test, and then tells her that he can't afford for anyone to see her, so he transforms her into a small fox form. Outside Seika's room, Yifa accidentally spilled some water on Glai's feet and he gets extremely angry at her for being a useless slave. But right then, he tries getting closer with her and tells her she can repay him for this by visiting his room later. However, Yifa doesn't know how to respond to this, and just then, Seika arrives to help Yifa. He tells Glai to leave her alone, but Glai responds by swinging a blow at him, but Seika blocks his attack with ease. This infuriates Glai, as he is the older brother and Glai constantly mistakes Seika for being a little weakling all the time. But Glai secretly knows that Seika must be stronger than he looks, so he just walks away, shouting that he will pay for his actions. After saving Yifa, she thanks Seika, and then she explains how she desperately needs his help with something that happened outside. When outside, they see a blue mythical creature laying on the floor and seems to be almost dead. She asks Seika if there was any chance he could revive the creature, although she understands how Seika's magic seems to be much lower than the rest of his family, so she understands if it cannot be done. But right then, he tells her to turn around and he performs an unknown spell from his past exorcist life which brings the animal back to life. She asks him if that was some kind of healing magic, but even though it was a different spell, he just agrees so she doesn't ask too many questions, which might lead to her knowing that he was actually reincarnated. After this, Seika suspects that Yifa can also do some kind of magic herself, as Yifa seems to always know about things that most people don't know. And that's when she reveals her elemental powers to Seika. However, she explains that this is her only magic feat, which seems pretty useless to her right now. However, the elementals do listen to her commands, and this seems to interest Seika a lot. He then casts a fire spell to see if Yifa can make it disappear, and after she screams at the fire, it fades away, and thus making Seika proud of her, and he can now take her in as his companion. After discovering Yifa's powers, Seika was walking through the mansion, and that's when his two brothers ask him if he would like to do some sword training, as he lacks in every other aspect of the family, so he must try to become good at least something, so that he can be considered a real asset to the family. But right after, some of their maids rush in, screaming that there is a monster on the loose, and that their father used fire magic against it, but to no gain, and that the monster is now making its way through the forest and will be reaching the mansion soon enough. They all start to panic, and are wondering when it will arrive at the mansion. But that's when Seika tells them he can already sense the monster is here, which shocks his siblings, as they can't sense anything at all, but Seika assures them all that the creature is right outside, and to get ready to attack. Glai warns the maids and everybody else to find a hiding place as quick as they can. But Seika doesn't listen as he knows that Yifa was outside practicing her magic elements, so he quickly heads back outside to save her. However, the monster was right outside too, and was about to eat Yifa and the other maid, but suddenly she forms a fire protection spell against the monster and she manages to get away. Just before the monster attacks their mansion, Seika distracts it and calls out to the beast to follow him, and moments after he rises into the air and casts a spell, using various different elements, which takes the monster down, leaving everyone in shock as they witness this weak boy defeat one of the largest monsters in the realm. After Yifa talks to the maid and explains how this spell not only brought the monster down, but Seika has also tamed the beast. Seika explains how this was possible due to his time as an exorcist, and when he tamed the fiercest dragon in the world. So he does the same thing to this beast, and promises that this time he will use his powers in a much different way and become wiser but also more cunning. A couple of weeks later, Luff sees Seika and Effa off as they prepare to leave for the Magic Academy. As the duo embarks on a new journey, Seika gives Effa a necklace made of mana stones to help her attract more spirits. Everything's going as smoothly as Seika planned until the motion sickness kicks in, putting him in a terrible state. After a week of traveling by carriage, they finally arrive at their destination, much to his relief. At the same time, Blaze is seen checking the time, as he reckons that Seika and Effa have already arrived at the academy. In another flashback, it is revealed that a mysterious woman left the young Seika to Blaze after Gilbert, his younger brother, disappeared in the infernal lands while he was on a quest as an adventurer. The fact of the matter is that Seika is not Blaze's son but his nephew. All the while, he is aware that Seika is special and that he uses a different power source instead of magic. It appears that Blaze refused to send Seika to the Imperial Army because of the uncertainties surrounding his true identity. As he puts it, depending on the environment, Seika could emerge as a true hero or a despicable villain. To escape a tragic fate, Blaze sent Seika to the Magic Academy at the expense of his real son. Meanwhile, Seika slumps into the bed as he has yet to recover from motion sickness. While Effa tries to carry on a conversation with Seika, he says that her room is next door. With her cheeks blushing, Effa asks Seika if he doesn't mind sharing a room since he has become her master now. Thinking that she only wants to have dinner with him, he lets her be. Disappointed, Effa steps outside to buy her master some food. Just as she leaves, Yuki turns up and gives Seika a lecture for failing to read Effa's signals. Soon afterward, the duo finds themselves at the gates of the Rodnia Magic Academy. At the registration, the aspiring students gasp in awe after learning that Seika is a lamprogue. To start their admission, they are asked to put their hand on a crystal ball to check their mana levels and if they have an affinity for all 4 elements. Effa goes first, and as expected by Blaze, she has weak magical aptitude, although she possesses fire and wind affinities. When it's Seika's turn, the crystal ball did not react, baffling everyone. As Professor Karen states that Seika might have light or dark affinity, he cuts her off, saying he simply doesn't have mana. Nonetheless, the process is just for registration, so Seika doesn't really have to worry. The students assume that the nobles are using their influence to get Seika into the Magic Academy. Hearing their murmurs, Effa unconsciously conjures up a fire. A while later, Amu, another commoner, walks in. As soon as she places her hand on the crystal ball, a white light flashes, revealing that the girl is Omni-Elemental, surprising everyone. Before she leaves, Seika thanks her for shifting the attention away from him. Amu makes it clear that she did not do Seika a favor, and just like the others, she believes that he's using his noble status to get admitted to the academy. While looking at Amu, Seika gets reminded of his prized disciple as they share the same features except for the hair color. In a short while, the practical skills test begins. While watching the exhibition, Seika observes that most students use identical elements and that their power is mediocre. Just then, Effa steps in for her turn. Using the intermediate level spells, Flame Note and Wind Lance, the supposed to be magic-resistant elemental targets prove to be otherwise. With the spectators' jaws dropped open, Professor Cordell assures them they prepared spare targets. Seeing Effa's growth, Seika can't help but feel proud as tears start to well up in his eyes. Following her lead is Seika himself, who surprises the students with his unique blue flames. While the fire is still not going out, he turns the granite into a pyrite crystal. When Seika is asked about the spell he used, he deliberately ignores the professor. Moving on to the last target, he summons a torrent of water and turns it into ice. Just as he finishes showcasing his abilities, Effa tells him he left the other students speechless. As the test ends, the two proctors talk about how well Seika and Effa performed, despite lacking mana and having low magical aptitude, respectively. Having said that, Amu stood out among the students after breaking all the elemental targets. For the record, she's the first student in the academy to accomplish this exceptional feat. The next morning, while checking the admission test ranking, Seika gets shocked to see his name in 3rd place, below Effa, who places 2nd. As expected, Amu scored the highest, leaving Seika thinking he might have just found the one. One night, while the duo walks toward the auditorium for the entrance ceremony, Seika feels something strange. Checking the location, they stumble upon multiple spirits, which lead them to a dark magic circle in the woods. Before they head to the auditorium, Seika leaves some paper dolls to monitor the area. Once there, Amu delivers the commencement speech as the student's representative. While sharing her reason for attending the academy, Seika feels an ominous presence drawing nearer and nearer. All hell breaks loose when the lesser devils barge into the hall, sending the students into a state of panic. Just as he's about to interfere with the students, barely leaving a scratch to the enemies, Amu shows them how it's done. Amidst the chaos, Seika realizes that the devils might just be a distraction. As soon as he finds the caster, he asks Effa to escape. Back in the woods, free of witnesses, Seika confronts the devil named Gallius. The devil summons 3 more minions and commands them to attack Seika. He easily dispatches the 2 and transfers one of them to the void. After assessing the situation, Gallius decides to take him on by himself. Seika tries to incapacitate the devil with his paper doll, but to no avail. Outraged by Seika looking down on him, Gallius uses his teleportation magic and manages to graze his cheek and wound his arm. Gallius then reveals his objective: to take the hero down. The battle continues, and Gallius still has the upper hand. Upon seeing an entrance, the devil delivers the final blow. Or maybe not. There goes Seika, with no signs of wounds whatsoever. Turns out that he used his paper dolls as body doubles to escape death and create an illusion that he keeps on reviving. Having had enough of playing around, he summons one of his strongest demon servants, Mizuchi. And so, Gallius finds himself inside the dragon's stomach. Interestingly enough, Mizuchi refuses to return to the void as it attempts to escape. Thankfully, he's able to send it back. At that point, he realizes that Mizuchi, rebelling against its master, is due to his weakened body in his new world. Back at the academy, Seika's eyes widen as he witnesses Amu single-handedly annihilating the lesser devils. Seeing the students staring daggers at Amu, Seika remembers his past. There and then, he's determined to befriend Amu and make her the strongest. For what it's worth, he doesn't mind living in someone's shadow as he promises to live a peaceful life this time. A month later, Seika tries to approach Amu, but the apparent tsundere keeps driving him away. While walking, a green fluid suddenly pours over the duo, prompting Seika to teleport with Effa to a safe spot. Cordell hurriedly checks on them, revealing that the mixture has a monster's blood he's using for research. Seeing the clay pot float earlier, Seika confirms that the professor is a light element specialist. In class, Karen asks the top 2 students to assist her with the upcoming founding anniversary rite. They are tasked to deliver the new student roster to the temple in the Rodnia forest and have it blessed. Since Seika met Gallius in the same location, he asks Effa to decline the request, forcing the professor to assign him in her stead as the 3rd-place student. The day of the rite arrives, with Karen handing the register to Seika. Heading to the forest, Amu accuses our MC that he's trying to make a move on her, to which he clarifies that she had it all wrong. While teasing Amu, she suddenly feels a jolt of pain, confusing Seika. Looking around, they come across a magic circle on top of a cut-down tree. Unbeknownst to them, it is a trap as they get transported to a dungeon. Lizard folks turn up, and Amu takes it upon herself to get rid of them. Just as she keeps her guard down, another monster appears. This time, Seika steps in to save her with a wood spell, which Amu has no idea about. While looking for the exit, he uses his talismans to light up their way. Judging by her reaction, Amu seems to be enjoying the present circumstances, and stumbling upon stronger monsters makes it more evident. Unfortunately, after eliminating a horde of monsters, a troll knocks her out cold, prompting Seika to summon the giant centipede. In one go, his demon servant clears their path. Upon waking up, Amu gets shocked to the core after noticing that the monsters have been dealt with and her wounds are gone. However, her chronic headache stops her from talking. To ease her pain, Seika puts up a barrier that blocks off curses. Amu reveals that her headache started when she enrolled in the academy, but she believes that it's not a curse. Seika thinks otherwise since the barrier stopped her headache, so he suggests searching for a curse mark on her body. After careful scrutinization, Seika fails to find any mark. In the meantime, he asks for a strand of her hair and attaches it to his talisman as her substitute. This way, she won't have to stay inside the barrier for comfort. As they engage in a casual conversation, Amu learns about Seika being an illegitimate son. He takes his chance and asks Amu about her family, to which she reveals that her mother is a guild officer, while her father is an adventurer. Seeing her sad reaction, Seika switches the topic to her hobbies. Amu stresses that she has always loved fighting, both monsters and humans. Safe to say that growing up, the people around Amu and her own family find her passion disturbing. With a long face, she asks Seika if she's weird, to which he replies that she's not. Continuing their search for the exit, they finally meet the dungeon's boss, a giant Naga. By teaming up together for the first time, they manage to defeat the Naga. Overwhelmed by their chemistry in fighting monsters, Amu leaps towards Seika, almost hugging him. She immediately removes her hands from his shoulders when she realizes that she's slowly drifting away from her cold character. Talking about raiding a dungeon, Amu ends up with a mithril sword while Seika takes a magic ring. Ultimately, they escape the dungeon safely. After connecting the dots, Seika figures that Cordell is behind Amu's suffering. He secretly confronts the professor who's busy running a ritual. Without beating around the bush, Seika commands Cordell to reveal his true nature. Turns out that he's a human, or more specifically, a devil's agent, who's also after the hero. Dropping the facade of a timid professor, Cordell bursts into maniacal laughter. As he prepares to launch an attack, Seika claims that the curse no longer affects Amu but his paper doll. Seika then summons a devil and transfers the curse to himself, which leads to reflecting the curse back to Cordell. Hence, the professor kicks the bucket. Sometime later, Seika gives the magic ring to Effa. While the spirits flock toward the ring, Amu comes into view. He enthusiastically greets her, but to his disappointment, she's back to her usual self. Moreover, she becomes closer to Effa instead. A year has passed since the incident, and there has not been a single devil attack. While eating, the vice principal informs Seika and Effa that they're being summoned by the principal to her office. The following day, Seika meets with the principal, a demi-human who prefers to be identified as a demi-devil. Finally meeting Seika in the flesh, the principal mentions his striking resemblance to Gilbert. It appears that Seika just discovered that Blaze has a brother. After a chit-chat, the principal requests Seika or Effa to participate in the capital's Arts of War tournament with the new student named Mabel. As soon as Amu learns about it, she throws a tantrum, questioning the principal for not choosing her as the academy's representative. In the end, Seika decides to join the tournament. Sometime later, Amu blabs on and on about her bias against the nobility, claiming that Mabel pulled off a Seika stunt to get admitted to the academy. Coincidentally enough, Mabel turns up behind them. She provokes Amu and tells her she wasn't chosen because she's weak. As the tension rises between the two, Amu interrupts two students in training and asks for their swords. After Seika's signal, the sparring match ensues. Amu initiates the battle, only for her attack to be parried by her opponent. Just then, Mabel charges with full power, forcing Amu to be on the defensive. While they seemingly stand on an equal footing, the newcomer overpowers the rumored hero, sending her broken sword flying into mid-air. To save face, Amu says that she did not use magic to enhance her abilities. Mabel tells her that she expects second chances, and that's what makes her weak. Before Mabel leaves, she advises Seika to withdraw from the competition if he doesn't want to get hurt. A few days later, the Magic Academy's representatives are seen traveling to the capital for the tournament. Well, Amu and Effa decide to tag along. Arriving at the capital, the ladies marvel at the sight of the skyscrapers and the crowd of townspeople. While they are at it, Seika looks as if he has been possessed by an evil spirit. On the other hand, Mabel is nowhere to be found. After recovering a little from motion sickness, they head outside the battle arena to check the tournament bracket. As Amu and Effa explore the city, Seika takes out his paper dolls to investigate the area. Later on, the Arts of War tournament officially begins. As the host welcomes the entrants and the audience, she reveals that the competition has changed as it now allows the use of magic and not just swords. As a result, the mages make up half the number of the participants. Apart from conceding, getting thrown out of the ring, and passing out from the battle, the host adds that once a participant's amulet breaks, it's game over. Kicking off the first matchup is Seika, who's pitted against Dennis from the Gala's mercenaries. Truth be told, every anime character should take note of Dennis' words as he declares to cut down Seika before he finishes his incantation. Unfazed by his threat, Seika states that he's not feeling well, so he'll end the fight quickly. Enraged, Dennis charges first and pierces his body, or more accurately, his dummy. With quick work, Seika sends his opponent out of the ring, claiming his first victory. Joining the crowd, Seika watches a battle between Baron, a student from another academy, and Kyle, a guard from the Legrock merchants. Just as the mage is about to cast a spell, he suddenly finds himself unable to move. Kyle slowly walks toward his direction, sending him to the afterlife without mercy. While the crowd's reaction is divided, the host announces Kyle as the winner. After the battle, Seika figures that Kyle is an evil eye wielder who can paralyze anyone with just a glance. For his next battle, Seika stands before Labenair, the puppeteer, who walks inside the arena with a golem designed for anti-magic combat. As she declares a premature victory, Seika summons a sickle weasel and tears the golem apart. Without her supposed trump card, Labenair surrenders, earning Seika his second win. Joining the girls again in the audience, Amu speaks on behalf of Effa and tells Seika that she's worried about his safety after witnessing Kyle's bloodlust. While Effa suggests Seika forfeit the battle, he assures her he'll be fine. Back to the competition, Mabel enters the ring for her second fight after going through the first round easily. She's up against Howlo, an earth mage. The man launches a boulder, but Mabel effortlessly cuts through it. Despite it being futile, he keeps activating the same spell. Realizing that he's not going anywhere with the lame attacks, he creates rock barriers. To his horror, the daggers, enhanced by gravity magic, penetrate his defense. Before Howlo can retaliate, Mabel cuts his staff. With that, he surrenders, and the host proclaims the red-haired hero as the winner. Hearing this, Seika asks the girls why Mabel is being referred to as a hero, to which Amu tells him that the second hero to ever exist is called Mabel. Effa adds that she also uses the same weapon. At night, Seika confronts a devil's agent after sending his Shikigami to stop the pigeon from delivering a message. The man attempts a sneak attack, only to get restrained by some vines. As he refuses to reveal his motive, Seika summons Satori, a mind-reading ape man. With Satori's help, Seika learns that the man works for two devils who sent him to spy on Mabel as the rumored hero. Apparently, Mabel matches the prophecy, from her gender to her hair and her skills. After getting all the information he needs, Seika gives the man to Satori as a reward. Not long after sending Satori back to the void, Seika checks the letter from the pigeon, only to find that it's a coded message. Even so, he believes he now knows what the academy is after. As he puts it, the principal wants Mabel, the false hero, to win the tournament and attract attention to keep Amu, the true hero, off the enemy's radar. Although he has already figured out the academy's intention with Mabel, he still has no idea why he was sent with her. The next day, Kyle wins his match with another flawless victory. A young knight named Rihanna skyrockets into the list of the tournament's favorites after displaying his mastery of the 4 elements. Just as he steps outside the arena, he runs into Seika and says he looks forward to meeting him in the finals. In his third match, Seika wins against a necromancer with little to no effort, just like Mabel, who dominates her respective battle. Speaking of which, she approaches Seika and suggests he forfeits their upcoming match in the semi-finals. As Mabel vows to win at all costs, she warns Seika that she won't hold back against him. Seika shrugs off her threat and sets the record straight that he has no intention of withdrawing from the tournament. Meanwhile, since both Kyle and Rihanna's won their third battles by default, they are scheduled to fight each other for the semi-finals on the same day. Being that cliché character, Kyle just stands there as he lets his opponent activate a spell that counters his evil eye. Rihanna's launches aggressive charges using the 4 elements, but Kyle remains unharmed. Seika concludes that he also uses gravity magic like Mabel. Out of options, Rihanna's creates an army of golems to stop his opponent from advancing. That is until Kyle brings his shadow magic into play, wrecking all the golems in one go. Even though he can't use his evil eye, Kyle forces his shadow to fuse with Rihanna's, hence freezing the latter into his place. Before the knight meets his maker, the referee blows the whistle, stopping the battle and preventing his death. And so, Kyle secures a spot in the finals. Later that night, Mabel attempts to kill Seika but is forced to beat a hasty retreat after experiencing his power firsthand. Intrigued by Mabel's resolve, Seika runs after her. Soon enough, Seika catches up to Mabel. He then tells her they won't proceed with the trial run for their battle tomorrow. As it turns out, she only wanted to at least injure Seika in hopes to have him drop out of the tournament. As Mabel pleads with him to withdraw, Seika confesses that he knows her ulterior motive as the false hero. In exchange for reconsidering his decision, he asks her to tell him everything. Mabel eventually gives in, revealing that her mission is to be defeated by Kyle for the devils to think that the hero no longer exists. To add, Mabel and Kyle were slave children trained by the Legrock merchants to become soldiers. Aside from staging the hero's death, the merchants want to test Kyle's strength in action after subjecting him to unethical experiments. Back at their training, Mabel and Kyle had 2 more members in their group, but since the beginning, only one of them was destined to survive and emerge as a real soldier. To make it short, Mabel is a part of both the propaganda and the test, and she's the only one left alive who Kyle needs to eliminate. That said, Mabel confesses that her ultimate goal is to end Kyle's life, claiming that he killed her brother. As she carries on with her monologue, Seika deduces that Kyle is her brother and that she only dyed her hair red. In a brief flashback, Kyle asked Mabel to put him out of his misery should he lose his sense of self after the experiment. Unwilling to let Mabel dispatch her own brother, Seika makes up his mind as he decides to finish off Kyle himself. The following day, their final clash begins. From the get-go, Mabel goes all out on the offensive and dominates the first half of the round. It won't last, however. Seika alters the weight of her weapon, making it 1,000 times heavier. Without it, she gets caught by his mercury vines, restraining her fully. While Mabel feels confident that Seika won't be able to lift her weapon, he channels his inner Thor and proves himself worthy. In a short while, he wins the match by the judge's decision. Without further ado, let's head to the championship battle. Kyle asks Seika if Mabel is still alive as he plans to execute his mission after their fight. Seika reminds his opponent to abandon the mission, stressing that Mabel is his sister. Kyle turns a deaf ear and reminds Seika not to stick his nose where it doesn't belong. As Seika swears to have Kyle apologize to his sister, the former envelopes the arena with a red mist. With a deadpan expression, Kyle holds out against his blue flames and mercury vines. Seika puts up a deflector shield just as his opponent fires a shadow attack. Determined to have Kyle show a different expression, Seika summons an ox demon. With a single blow from his demon servant, he passes out. Shortly, Kyle's failure to carry out his duty triggers the merchant's curse, prompting Seika to activate the barrier. To his shock, the curse's effects persist, leaving him thinking that he encapsulated Kyle a little too late. Before he dies, he requests Seika to tell Mabel how sorry he is. Seika attempts to revive him but is abruptly stopped by Yuki, reminding him that all his efforts will be in vain once the crowd notices his immense power. After reaching the battle's conclusion, Seika sent Kyle's body to the void to hold a proper burial for him later. Fortunately, the people believed his alibi, that he completely obliterated Kyle. During the closing ceremony, the emperor did not show up, and the organizers handed him the rewards. While he gladly accepted the prize money, he rejected the offer to serve as a member of the imperial army. The next morning, as Mabel laments Kyle's death, Seika convinces her to continue studying at the academy as its real student. As soon as Amu catches sight of Mabel, she challenges her to a duel. This time, the hero wins the fight after she uses magic. Back at the academy, Seika applauds the principal for using him as a pawn to bring her cunning plan to fruition. Safe to say that the principal hit two birds with one stone as she deprived the Legrock merchants of Kyle and kept Mabel at the academy. Months pass, and Mabel, sporting her original hair color, joins Seika's small circle. As they talk about their plans for the summer break, Seika shares that he's been assigned to take over Blaze's job to investigate a dragon in the Asteria Kingdom. While Seika refuses Amu and Mabel's request to join him, he asks Effa to be his company, much to her delight. Suddenly, Cecilio, the crown prince of Asteria, and Lies, his elf attendant, walk inside the cafeteria. The guy approaches Seika and exchanges pleasantries with him. Cecilio's attention immediately shifts to Effa and compliments her beauty. He claims that she must be a noble lady to be able to study in the prestigious academy. At that instant, he asks Effa to join his harem and become one of his wives. With crimson-dyed cheeks, Effa confesses that she's a commoner and Seika's servant. Cecilio asks her master to name his price for Effa. Before Seika can even talk, Lies alerts Cecilio that he's barking up the wrong tree. Elsewhere, the young lads talk about Seika's mission with the dragon. As Cecilio states, the legendary creature has always lived in harmony with his people until it starts acting strangely over the past year, attacking crops and livestock. Cecilio worries that their country's problem might turn worse anytime soon. After giving Seika a rundown of the dragon's background story, the prince suggests they have dinner together as the sight of Effa makes him hungry. Again, Lies interferes and reminds Cecilio to stop pursuing the matter. Later on, Amu and Mabel confront Seika to confirm if he's going to give Effa to the air-headed prince. He makes it clear that handing Effa over to someone never crossed his mind, but he won't stand in her way if she wants Cecilio. The girls advise Seika not to open the topic to Effa as it might come off as offensive. Soon afterward, the duo travels to Asteria Kingdom with the prince's carriage and its escorts. Effa mentions the possibility that Cecilio wasn't serious about adding her to his harem, to which Seika admits that she really piqued his interest. Hearing this, Effa seems flattered, causing Seika to get a little worked up. 9 days later, they finally arrive at Protoster, the old capital of the Asteria Kingdom. Just as they get off the carriage, the dragon attacks them. Zekt, a mercenary group leader, summons a lava tiger to fend off the dragon. While the beast successfully drives the dragon away, it suddenly attacks Effa, who's frozen in fear. Seika rushes to save her, and when he's about to take the tiger down, Zekt stops his wild pet with a magic chain. After learning that Seika will investigate the dragon, Zekt gives him an arrogant sneer. When Seika asks Cecilio why he hired a mercenary group, the latter reveals that if worse comes to worst, he'll order the killing of the dragon. Seika advises the prince to reconsider his decision to avoid the worst-case scenario. Enraged by Seika's remark that he is incapable of defeating a dragon, Zekt lashes out at him. Cecilio intervenes before they cause a scene. At the library, Seika discovers a story similar to what's currently happening in the Asteria Kingdom. A queen raised a male dragon until a female dragon appeared, and they decided to live together deep in the mountains. Since then, 50 years have passed and their behavior changed drastically after they had hatchlings. Seika believes that magical power alone wasn't enough for the hatchlings to survive, so the dragons resorted to hunting livestock. When the baby dragons grew up, they left the nest. Another 50 years went by, and the female dragon died by natural death. Still clueless about why the existing dragon is becoming violent, Seika decides to search for it in the mountains. Night falls, and Effa informs Seika that Cecilio attempted to summon her to his room, but she refused. Too scared to be alone, Effa decides to stay inside Seika's room. Unable to sleep, Seika talks about the prince's offer to Effa. He tells her that if he's the only reason that's holding her back, he assures her that she doesn't have to worry. In tears, Effa sleeps with a heavy heart. As if nothing happened last night, Effa asks Seika to be extra careful as he goes on a solo adventure the following morning. Lies meets with Effa and tells her that the spirits avoid Seika because he is a monster. Effa, who has lived her entire life with her master, refuses to acknowledge her claim, stressing that Seika is still a human. Even so, Lies suggests Effa stay away from him before extending her hand to invite her to see the harem. At the same time, Seika finally finds what he's been looking for. The dragon breathes fire on him, so he surrounds himself with a barrier. Since it's been a while since he last encountered a decent opponent, Seika summons a baby-sized elderly yokai. As his demon servant releases a piercing cry, the dragon slumps to the ground. Seika then traps the dragon inside a fire-resistant net. Seeing the egg on the nest, he realizes that the male dragon turned into a female after its mate's demise. Hence, it suddenly behaves wildly. Effa is spotted exploring the harem, which actually works like a university for young ladies where the next queen and government officials come from. Lies continues to convince Effa to stay in the kingdom and join the royal harem. On the other hand, Seika takes the role of the previous queen as he helps the dragon hatch its egg. Now that his job is over, he tries to leave the dragon, but it pulls him in as if it wants Seika to stay longer. Unaware that Cecilio has already processed her release from slavery, Effa is forced to sign the legal papers. As the prince claims, Seika will eventually agree in exchange for a hefty sum of money. While Effa tries to resist, Lies warns her that if she activates her power, the situation will no longer be a personal affair. Lies goes for Effa's thumbprint instead, cutting her finger in the process. That is until Seika arrives, riding his newly found friend, to rain on their parade. He takes Effa and leads her to the dragon's nest, with no idea that he just saved her. Now that's unexpected, we all know it would have been satisfying if he burned the palace into ashes. Moving on, Zek summons the lava tiger as he attempts to steal the egg and sell it on the black market. With his underlings in the background, Zek warns Seika not to get in his way. Just as the tiger breaks free from Seika's spell, Effa sends it flying with her enhanced water magic. Zek commands the tiger to strike back alongside his minions, only to be stopped dead in their tracks as the beast vanishes into thin air. Seika introduces himself as the world's strongest mage, with the dragon standing behind him. Seeing the dragon taking Seika's side, the mercenaries try to escape, but his vines stop them. No longer holding back, Effa sets Zek's grimoire engulfed in flames. After the skirmish, the mercenary group is taken into custody. On a whim, Cecilio requests Seika to slay the dragon to increase his chances of becoming the next king. Needless to say, Seika declines, so the prince orders his arrest, accusing him of altering the dragon's behavior. Just then, Cecilio asks Effa to join his side now that her master will be held captive in the kingdom. For the first time, Seika loses his cool as he gives the prince an earful about his incompetency and lack of empathy. Amidst the commotion, Lies cracks up and asks Effa about her decision over the prince's invitation. Ultimately, she refuses to be a part of the royal harem as she remains loyal to Seika. After Cecilio's rejection, Lies apologizes for the unjust treatment Seika and Effa experienced during their stay in the kingdom. Sometime later, Lies speaks with Effa alone. She asks if she really loves Seika, to which she says yes. After that, Lies gives Effa multiple light spirits capable of healing. It appears that Effa is connected to the elves race because of the nature of her magic. Elsewhere, 5 dangerous creatures, namely Zormnum, the group's captain, Mutarov, the strongest ogre, Pirisralia, an evil eye user, Lonnie, a monster tamer, and Ganes, the devil, gather to hunt for their prey, the hero. At the academy, Seika invites Amu to their mansion to meet his family. He also asks Mabel as it seems unkind to leave her out. Of course, it's not because he really wanted to introduce them to his family, but because of a request from an influential person. Upon arriving at the Lamprogue estate, they are greeted by Luft and Eddies, Effa's father. Out of nowhere, Gray screams Seika's name, claiming that he's been waiting for his return. As if Gray flips a switch, he confesses that he never expected that he would enjoy himself in the Imperial Army. Still dying to get his revenge on Seika, he requests a rematch with him. After confirming to Effa that Gray is a bully, Amu volunteers to be his sparring partner. With Seika as the acting referee, he declares that using magic is forbidden. As the mock duel begins, Amu immediately gets the upper hand. When she's about to deliver the decisive strike, Gray fakes casting a magic spell, and thus Amu falls for his trick and loses. She demands another round, but he refuses and proceeds to challenge Seika. Knowing full well that Gray won't stop pestering him, he agrees until a blue-haired girl enters the picture. As she insinuates that Gray will lose against Seika, he brushes aside the duel. Witnessing his hot-headed brother listen to someone, Seika can't believe his eyes. Gray then introduces the girl as Fiona, the Imperial Princess better known as the Holy Princess. Turns out that Fiona is the person who wanted to meet Amu due to her being the top student in the Magic Academy and having an omni-elemental affinity. As she expresses her interest in having Seika and Amu join her paladins, she reveals that she'll stay at the estate for a couple of days. In another flashback, it is revealed that Eddies despised the idea of having his daughter accompany Seika at the academy. As such, he called Seika an awful child. Back to the present, Blaze praises Seika for his performance during the tournament, which made waves among specialists. Oddly enough, his stepmother tells him he should send them letters more often. Indeed, the look on his face says it all. Later that night, Yuki admits that she doesn't like Fiona. Things take an unexpected turn when Seika reveals that the princess resembles his former wife in his past life. Just as Yuki demands a detailed explanation for his revelation, Amu enters his room without knocking. Bored to death, Amu asks about Seika's plan when he graduates, but he dodges the question. Amu states she wants to return to her hometown and become an adventurer. She asks the same question once more, to which he finally replies that he wants to fulfill their promise to each other to go adventuring again. While Seika admits that he lacks knowledge about being an adventurer, he requests Amu to walk him through it once they graduate. The next day, Seika, Amu, and Gray escort Fiona as they go for a walk around the town. To make sure they won't get separated, the princess holds Seika's hand, shocking Amu while Gray is seemingly not surprised by how she's acting. While passing through a construction site, timber piles suddenly fall on Seika and Fiona. Luckily, Gray and Amu react quickly to the situation, saving them. She thanks the two for protecting her while she starts to give Seika a cold shoulder for not doing anything. In his defense, he knew Gray and Amu would save them, so he did not bother doing anything. Upon noticing that they have attracted the public's attention, Gray suggests they leave the place at once. To make Fiona feel any better, Seika gives her a bandana and ties her hair with it himself. Before the sun sets, Seika interrupts Gray while training. At that point, the latter reveals that Fiona chose him as one of her paladins not because of his ability, but because of an ulterior motive. As he puts it, the princess is still a politician after all. Gray discloses the princess' ability to see the future after inheriting it from her mother. Talking about character development, Gray warns Seika about the possibility that Fiona is plotting something that involves him and Amu. After hiding from Fiona for hours, Seika finds her alone on the terrace, playing chess by herself. She then invites him to play with her. Since no one has defeated Fiona in chess, she decides to play with just 8 pawns and the king. As Seika claims he'll give the princess her first loss, Fiona suggests they make a bet. Whoever loses will follow whatever the winner wishes. While they are at it, Seika confronts the princess about her ability to catch glimpses of the future. She's seemingly calm and collected even after getting exposed that she intentionally stood under the timber piles. She even thanks Gray for saving her the trouble of telling her secret to his brother. A while later, Seika surrenders, which leaves the princess still undefeated. Even though she can see the future, Seika gives credit to her skills. As the winner, Fiona tells Seika that she will take her time to think about the things she wants him to do. Deep in the woods, the 5-man squad just finished exterminating some humans. Zormnum commands his subordinates to replenish their strength before they carry out their main objective. And just like that, the short vacation is over as Seika and the girls prepare to leave the mansion. Sharing the same carriage with Fiona and Gray, Seika asks his brother, as the captain of the soldiers, if it's okay that he's out in the open. Gray stresses that his top priority is the princess' safety, and given their numbers, he's confident that nothing will happen. That is until a group of bandits try to ambush them as they take out an empty carriage they used as a decoy. Seika leaps on top of the carriage and sees several bandits surrounding them. The enemies fire their arrows at Seika, but he deflects their attacks with a single spell. They continue to target him, but it's a futile effort. Hence, the bandits' leader orders his men to ignore Seika and search for the princess carriage instead. With that, Gray steps outside and commands the knights to crush the bandits. Upon the request of Fiona, Seika catches all the enemies with his vines. When he checks on the ladies, he's surprised to know they had no idea that the bandits were behind the disturbance. Shortly, Fiona summons Seika to thank him for capturing the enemies who turned out to be assassins. Seika then asks the princess if she plans on using them as evidence against her political rivals. Fiona confirms his hunch, but she's still uncertain about the identity of the person who sent them. She also reveals that there's another group of assassins on their way, but they won't try to attack them. The next scene pans over to the lifeless humans who ran into Zormnum's squad. Before they part ways, Fiona reminds Seika that she is on his side no matter what. A girl who can see the future and a boy who has installed CCTV everywhere with his talismans. They're the tandem to beat. Sometime later, the principal requests Seika to represent the graduating class at the opening ceremony. Surprisingly, he agrees on the spot. While Yuki expresses her worries that he might stand out, Seika says that he's starting to think that finding someone who would take the place of the strongest no longer concerns him. From then on, he decides to act more freely without feeling wary of his every move. Meanwhile, Zormnum and his subordinates are spotted standing outside the gates of the Magic Academy. After giving his men a pep talk, they teleport inside the walls and find themselves surrounded by red mist. Gaines produces fire to light up his path until he comes across 2 students. In haste, he covers them up with his flames, only to get himself disappointed. Pirisralia and Lonnie team up, with the latter summoning 2 wolves to catch someone running nearby. Once the wolves return, Lonnie notices that something is off. Nudarev is becoming impatient as he has yet to stumble upon anyone until some daggers pierce his club. Mabel casually walks toward Nudarev and asks who sent him. Realizing that it doesn't matter, she initiates the battle. Despite the ogre's body build, he's somewhat on par with Maybelle's agility. As she keeps throwing powerful charges, Mudarev is feeling pumped up until the daggers restrain his body. To her shock, the ogre breaks free from her spell, revealing that he's resistant to all elements. Mudarev leaps to deliver his finishing move and crushes the ground. However, Mabel vanishes, and all that's left is a talisman. Strangely enough, Zormnum and the others meet at a certain spot, each holding a talisman. Speaking of the owner, Seika turns up just in time before they retreat. He reveals that the students they encountered are all Shikigamis except Maybelle. As Mudarev challenges Seika for one-on-one combat, the former falls to his death in a blink of an eye. Pyrisralia steps in and activates her evil eye to turn Seika into stone. As a response, he summons a white snake, and its eyes overpower Pyrisralia's, leading to her demise. Lonnie takes advantage of the situation and attempts to tame the white snake. It goes without saying that Seika's demon servant does not see the bunny as a friend, but as a snack. At that moment, Zormnum regrets sending his party to the Magic Academy. With his ability to detect someone's power, Zormnum blurts out that Seika is none other than the Devil King. He commands Gannies to teleport and tell their people about their discovery. As Seika declares that they won't succeed in killing the hero, Zormnum mutters that the prophecy about the Devil King joining the human side has come true. With his Opus abilities, another one-hit moment flashes on the screen as Zormnum reunites with his subordinates in the afterlife. After narrowly escaping his death, Gannies is seen in the forest, badly injured. While he believes that he's now safe, Seika pulls off another trick, sparing him no mercy. Unaware that Seika had already disposed of the enemies, Maybelle rushes to inform him about the ogre that got away from her. While Maybelle is still frantic, Seika tells her she doesn't have to worry. He then asks her to keep what happened a secret between them. After the incident, Seika seeks Amu's help for his upcoming speech at the opening ceremony. Just as he prepares to leave, a lance of knights enters the hall, announcing they were sent by Lord Marquis Greville. The Knight Commander shoves a student as they make their way toward Amu. After confirming that she's the daughter of Crowden, the adventurer, the Knight Commander accuses Amu of treason against the Empire. As he puts it, Amu took the lives of the ambassadors from the infernal lands, leaving her utterly confused. As the knights begin to restrain Amu, Seika stops Maybelle and Effa from interfering. He assures Amu that she will be released, one way or another. Later on, Seika meets with the principal and shares his stand about the present circumstances. He believes Amu's arrest is the Empire's last resort to dispose of the hero. The principal tells him that she is exhausting all her resources and working all her influences to gain the favor of the Imperial Court. Before they end their conversation, the principal warns Seika not to act rashly, as he might worsen the situation. Unwilling to wait for the principal's plan to bear fruit, Seika takes it upon himself to guarantee Amu's safety. Night falls, and he summons Mizuchi. While he's still having trouble controlling the dragon, he manages to tame it. Just then, Yuki shows up and expresses her objection to his plan to save Amu. She alerts Seika that if he resolves the issue with his own power, he might make an enemy of the entire country. Yuki believes that Seika will meet the same end as Harayoshi. In the end, Seika chooses to be Amu's protector. Inside her prison, Amu wonders how her friends are doing without her, making her tear up. While she's having a moment, somebody disrupts her solitude. As the Imperial Palace comes into sight, Seika drops his talismans and turns them into mice to search for Amu. As soon as Seika sees her, he walks to the Imperial grounds as if he's just walking at a park. A knight blows a whistle, and before Seika knows it, he's completely surrounded. Several arrows rain down on him, but just like before, he easily deflects their attacks. Since they won't stop bugging him, he generates massive boulders and sends them plummeting straight to the knights. Walking further, he runs into more knights, but even so, their numbers aren't enough to stop him. Soon enough, Seika finds Amu and melts the metal bars. While he asks her to escape, she refuses and demands he goes home before his family gets involved. Amu tells him to just wait for her at the academy until she's free. After a brief pause, Seika reveals that the Empire won't let her go because she's the hero, and they fear her power. As Seika continues to convince her, Gray and Fiona turn up at the scene. At that instant, Seika asks Fiona why she wants Amu to die. The princess states that both the hero and the Devil King are relics of the past, and for as long they live, they can spark wars. To add, Fiona reveals that Amu has not yet earned the title of the hero because Seika is doing all the work that she's supposed to do to unleash her full potential. The princess pleads with Seika to step back as she promises to return Amu unharmed, and he will not get punished for his actions. Seika eventually realizes that Fiona wanted to meet both of them before so she could make such a request. For that reason, Seika remembers their promise to each other over their chess match. Refusing to return to the academy, Fiona leads them to their carriage bound for Lakana City. It is then revealed that Fiona and Gray visited Amu in prison to check on her and cheer her up. For failing to keep his promise, Seika revives all the knights, unaware that Fiona has already made up an alibi to make it appear that a giant monster attacked the palace. Later that night, as Seika and Amu set forth for another journey, a strange shadow appears behind Fiona and asks her about the powerful entity within reach. All the while, Fiona is aware that Seika is the Devil King. As the first season draws to a close, the duo is surprised to see Effa and Mabel in the same city. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this and want to see more, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel with notifications on so you never miss a future video. And until next time guys, take care.